Have you ever thought about, like, if you can actually think your way to a better life?
You know, that's a question that comes up a lot.
I mean, this whole concept of manifestation, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty huge right now.
It is. It really is.
This idea that if you just focus all your energy on something you really want, you can kind of attract it into your reality.
It's a multi-million-dollar phenomenon.
Seriously.
Yeah,
So we thought we'd do a deep dive into manifestation.
I like it.
Is it a genuine pathway to happiness and success, or is it just wishful thinking dressed up in, like a wellness trend?
Right?
I mean, that's the big question, isn't it?
Absolutely. And actually, you sent over a really fascinating article for this deep dive
Oh, yeah.
from The Guardian.
I remember.
It was published in February 2022.
Okay.
And the title is My Life Completely Turned Around. Is Manifesting the Key to Happiness or Wishful Thinking?
Catchy.
Yeah. And I thought it was really interesting because it lays out both like the really enthusiastic stories about manifesting, but then also brings in some like healthy skepticism around it.
Right.
So I think our mission today is to kind of really get to the bottom of this for you.
Awesome.
Okay.
So let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
What do we even mean when we say manifesting?
Right. So at its very core, manifestation is this belief that, if you really concentrate your thoughts and energy on a particular outcome that you really, really want, you can actually will it into being.
Okay.
You can bring it into your life.
I see.
So think about the article talks about vision boards.
Oh, yeah.
Where you visually represent your goals or, using daily affirmations.
Okay.
Those positive statements that you repeat to yourself.
I see.
And even that idea of acting as if
Right.
you've already achieved your dream life.
Yeah. It's interesting because it feels very now, doesn't it?
It does.
This whole idea of visualizing your best self.
Right.
And attracting, good things into your orbit. But I was really surprised to learn from the article that this is not a new idea.
No, not at all.
At all.
And that's actually one of the things that I think is really interesting here.
Okay.
Is that you can trace the history of this back quite a ways.
Really?
So the article actually talks about the origins going all the way back to the 19th century.
Wow.
To the New Thought movement.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so this was this philosophical and spiritual belief system that basically emphasized the power of positive thinking to influence reality.
Okay.
And so, what we're seeing now is very much like a modern rebranding of these older ideas.
Interesting.
And it's gained a lot of popularity as this kind of wellness hack.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And I mean, you can't deny the influence of social media on this as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? You see it everywhere online, people talking about law of attraction.
Yeah.
And the article even mentions celebrities like Oprah who've spoken about this. So it makes you wonder if there's something to it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Especially when you hear people like that talking about it.
Totally.
The article even shares a personal story.
Yeah.
About someone whose life apparently turned around completely for the better after they started journaling their goals.
That's so interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And we actually have a clip from the source material, too.
Okay.
From an actor and voiceover artist who describes having a really similar experience.
Oh,
he was feeling stuck in his career.
Yeah.
And then after he committed to journaling his goals, he ended up landing his dream role.
Wow.
So when you hear these personal anecdotes, it's kind of hard not to be at least a little bit intrigued, right?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes you wonder if there's something more to this.
Yeah.
Than just coincidences.
Exactly.
Or wishful thinking.
So where does the science come in?
Right. So the article does a great job of presenting different viewpoints.
Okay.
So on the one hand, they talk to some psychologists who suggest that there might actually be a psychological basis for some of these manifestation principles.
Okay. Interesting.
So, for example, they interview this behavioral scientist, Dr. Name, who proposes that when you visualize your goals, it can prime your brain to be more aware of opportunities.
Oh, that makes sense.
That could help you achieve those goals.
Yeah, like if you're constantly thinking about something, you're more likely to notice it when it pops up in your life.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So it's less about some mystical force.
Okay.
And more about kind of sharpening your focus.
Oh, I see.
And boosting your motivation.
Right.
That's what they're saying.
And, it's like when you decide you want a certain car.
Totally.
And then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere.
Right. It's like you've primed your brain.
Exactly.
See it.
But the article also includes some critical perspectives.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's not all just, positive vibes and everything's going to work out. What did the critics have to say?
Well, one of the things that they bring up is that this intense focus on individual manifestation can lead to some problems.
Oh, how so?
Well, because it can shift attention away from wider societal problems.
Okay, I see.
And kind of suggest that if you're not successful, it's entirely your own fault. The example they use in the article is, can't afford rent. Just think harder.
Right.
Which is obviously
a little harsh.
A bit problematic.
Yeah.
Because obviously there are these larger systemic issues at play.
Of course.
That affect people's lives.
Right. And it's not always just a matter of mindset.
Exactly.
It's interesting because that kind of reminded me of the skeptic that we heard from in that clip.
Yeah.
The person who spent all this time and money on these manifestation courses, but didn't see any real results.
Right. And it really makes you think.
It does.
About that balance. How much is mindset?
Right.
And how much is taking action?
And what about external factors?
Right.
Exactly.
Like there are just some things that are out of your control, right?
Absolutely.
So I thought it was really interesting that the article also included a case study.
Yes.
Of a woman who rebuilt her life after a divorce using manifestation techniques.
I remember this part.
And the thing that really stood out to me was that she didn't just sit around passively wishing for things to get better.
Right.
The quote from the article that I really loved was, I didn't just sit and wish. I wrote down goals, networked, and took risks I'd never have dared before.
Yeah, that's such a powerful quote.
I know.
So it really highlights that action component.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the article talks about the dopamine effect.
Oh, right.
And how when you visualize success, it can release dopamine in your brain, which is a neurotransmitter that's linked with pleasure and reward.
Interesting.
So they can fuel your persistence and make you more likely to take action.
That makes sense.
Right. So the visualization isn't a replacement for effort.
It's more like a catalyst for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
If that makes sense.
It does.
And there was that great analogy that we came across.
Oh, yeah.
That manifesting is like a GPS.
Yes.
You set the destination, but you still have to drive the car.
You still got to do the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the article also talks about the potential dark side of manifestation, right?
It does.
And this is the part that I think we need to be really careful about.
Okay.
This idea of good vibes only.
Right, right.
Because what happens when things don't go according to plan?
Exactly.
There's this idea in some of these manifestation communities that if you're not thriving, it's because you're not vibrating high enough.
Right. Or you're not being positive enough.
But you're not being positive enough. And that can be really damaging.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, especially if you've been through something really difficult.
Absolutely.
The article quotes a therapist who warns about the dangers of this kind of thinking, especially for trauma survivors.
That makes sense.
To suggest to someone who's experienced a lot of trauma that they're not happy because they haven't manifested happiness.
Right.
That's just not okay.
It's really insensitive.
It is. And it's potentially really harmful.
And it kind of invalidates their experiences, you know?
Exactly.
It places the blame on the individual rather than acknowledging the real challenges they've faced.
Right. It's like a form of toxic positivity.
It is.
Where any negative emotion is seen as a failure on your part to manifest.
Like you're not allowed to have negative emotions.
Exactly.
Which is not realistic.
Not at all.
But the article does suggest a more balanced approach.
Okay. What is it?
Combining manifesting with self-compassion.
I like that.
So instead of just focusing on attracting what you want, you also focus on accepting yourself for who you are.
Yeah.
So for example, pairing affirmations like, I attract abundance.
Okay.
With affirmations like, I'm enough as I am.
I see.
It's a much healthier way to approach it.
Right.
It acknowledges that life has ups and downs.
Of course.
And that your worth isn't tied to your ability to manifest things.
Right.
I think that's a really important point.
I agree. So after all of this, where do we land?
Right.
Is manifestation just hype?
That's the question.
Or is there some genuine hope in it?
I think based on everything we've discussed today and all the different perspectives that the article presented, it seems like it's probably somewhere in between.
Okay.
It's not magic.
Right.
It's not going to just make all your dreams come true without any effort.
Right.
But it can be a useful tool
Okay.
For focusing your intentions.
Yeah.
Increasing your motivation.
Okay.
Cultivating a more positive outlook.
Right.
But you got to be realistic about it.
Of course.
And you can't buy into that toxic positivity stuff.
I agree.
Right.
So if you're intrigued by all of this, we thought we'd give you a little homework assignment.
Ooh, I like it.
Inspired by the article.
Okay.
So we're calling it the 7-Day Manifesting Challenge.
I love it.
So for the next week, try writing down one specific goal that you want to manifest each day.
Okay.
But here's the key. Alongside that, you have to take at least one small action each day.
Okay.
That will move you closer to that goal.
I like it.
So it's not just about thinking about it.
Right.
It's about actually doing something.
Taking action.
Exactly. And let us know how it goes.
Yes.
DM us your results.
We want to hear about it.
We're going to be looking out for the most interesting experiences.
For sure.
And we might even share some of them in a future deep dive.
Cool.
And if you want to learn more about manifestation, we've included a link to the full Guardian article in the show notes.
Awesome.
So as you go through your week, remember this, think smart,
work hard,
and maybe, just maybe,
let the universe handle the rest.
But don't forget that you are ultimately the one in the driver's seat.
You got it.
Okay.
That's great.
Thanks so much.